Hello, hello, everyone. Happy sports ball Sunday.
Sports ball, Super Bowl, Super
well,
Sports
well,
Yeah.
Ball.
well. Before you jump over to your, to your programming and your ads and your live streams and all that.
Highly
Hopefully,
fun.
you're sticking around for us to interview a great person in the community,
Oh no,
William
man.
Powell of the Sci-Fi Center.
No.
He's taking care of business. He's taking care of business. He's still a business owner, so we got to give him a second. I muted him until he's done.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
I'll set up the intro. So, yeah, folks, you may already be familiar with William from his channel, the Sci-Fi Center. He does pretty much daily streams, and you may also recognize him from Dave the Film Junkie show, and as well as the Poindexter Lounge. So he's definitely been around for like years and years. He's kind of like been like he's been around, but like he's only just recently in the last like few years started to make content and then transferred over to his own platform to exclusively make content for himself, and it's just been a booming success. He like smashed through over 1,000 subscribers, after just maybe like a year of going solo without any dual streaming. So he's really taken the ball and ran with it as far as getting his own brand identity and voice as a pundit or contributor in the space, as far as keeping the film and TV and sci-fi and fantasy film and comic book movie discussion going. So yeah, he's like a big contributor to that, and we just wanted to shout him out and give the opportunity to get to know him a little bit more, and yeah, open the field for folks in the chat to ask any questions that they like, as long as they're respectful. But Max, do you want to add anything?
I'm not here to shout him out. I'm here to deep dive on William, figure out what he's all
There's
about.
no dive to deep. There's no
Dive to deep.
He's an open book. I know I troll him and roast him all the time, but
good.
William is a good friend for myself, and I think I'm exposing myself as far as like my toxic trait of like treating people I consider family as like joking a little bit too much with them and stuff. But it's really just like a reflection of like me considering y'all family. So like the same I do at William, I do at Max. I troll both of y'all because I consider you family.
I blame Rhea for you too, but mainly I blame Enosh is how I know William and his hot takes.
A lot of blame to go around there. Why was Brad on here before me?
Okay, literally, I was about to jump into this. Okay, so y'all in the chat and on X. Okay, William went full Rob Liefeld, or like Rob. Yeah, so he went like full Rob on me, and he was just like, "Oh, well, you invited everyone else on your streams. What about me?" And I'm just like, "Bro, we literally had a whole ass appreciation stream. You were literally our first appreciation stream before you were even anybody." So first of all,
listen. Now people think Brad's the host of the channel now, and I've had to set all that straight.
No, don't let this revisionist history that William's trying to put out. He's dodging me. He was dodging me. I kept saying, William, what are we going to get you for interview? Well, I'm busy now. I got my own thing going on. I'm a business owner.
Although I keep weird hours. You keep
see
hours. You're on 3 hours time difference, and I'm
okay. All right. Don't throw this out to my audience now, Andrea's audience, that you're we went. One of the first pieces we talked about was like, I know William. I know him. He pops in every once in a while. He used to pop in my channel like, oh, this is the wrong link. I meant to go on Enosh's. That's how you showed up.
But that's the thing though,
because you guys all had the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, but like here's the thing though, for folks in the chat, like yes, our communities do like overlap for sure, and like there's this whole like there's a bunch of concentric circles where a lot of us do like watch other streamers and stuff, but we all cover similar topics but with our own little spin. So if folks are like more used to kind of like the free forming sort of like organic chat interaction and like open panel situation, you may gravitate more towards Max's channel. Like, that's definitely why I showed up here first. And then what I appreciate about William's channel is that he has one co-host, Brad Curran, who y'all are familiar with from a previous Have You Met episode. And he keeps the chat or he keeps the show very tight as far as like covering main topics and then entering into like more of like an open forum. So if you're like familiar with like Den of Nerds or John Campia or R&B, like that's a similar format to what they do, and I really appreciate that because I can just sit and listen to the podcast, and then whatever freeform content comes after that, I've already got like the bulk of what I tuned in for. So if you're looking for that type of value in either format, Max and William are going to be your folks for that.
Yeah, and he's notorious hot takes. You're not afraid to stress your opinion on like executives and decisions. Like they should never made this project. It was never going to be successful. I like that. I don't agree.
Well, a lot of it is because you have two different perspectives, and I'm of all windows. I'm a fan, but there's a luxury that someone who's just a fan doesn't have to consider, and that's the cost of something. So when somebody sits somewhere with no risk and says, how come they don't release this? How come they don't make this? They're usually paying $0 for any type of risk that they're ever take. And you have to understand from the other person's point of view, somebody's job's on the line, somebody's revenue is on the line, somebody's credibility is on the line. If you do something stupid with somebody else's money, the likelihood of them being able, them being willing to finance you or do anything else with you again decreases. So that's a lot of times people are like, well, how come this didn't get made? How come they didn't do this? It's not your money. It's your money comes at the end of the process when everybody else has already been risked and leveraged. So,
well, before we dive into, the hardcore, movie and like, talk that a lot of us like, are in like the same community for, I'd love to give William the floor to kind of like take us back to, you growing up in, the
Yes.
Inland Empire in California, then, kind of your exposure to, nerd and geek culture, then ultimately opening up business as a comic book shop purveyor.
I'll start. I got to California in '76. I was born in Berlin, Germany, Berlin Army Hospital, literally about 1,000 feet, I think, from the Berlin Wall. What was West Berlin at the time. I came to California, grew up in California, LA, greater LA area. Pretty much was always into science fiction, horror, fantasy. Started collecting comics, bit by bit, in '82. And would just get them off of racks wherever we could get them from the base, BX. I grew up on an Air Force base. 7-Eleven, they, always get them out of sequence because, they just would get whatever you could get there. And then I actually started going to comic book stores in '88. And then when I moved to San Bernardino, I would, that's where I started hardcore collecting because then I had a job, things like that. So I could just buy stuff. Opened up this place in December of '94.
Wow.
And then it's pretty much just been doing it and growing it and transforming it ever since then. That's pretty much it's pretty simple story.
Awesome. So your love of comics came first, and then you decided to also venture into business with one of your loves. But how have you made since '94 is quite an accomplishment? You've been through some very different parts of the economy. Any struggles and how do you stay relevant with the current, like can you explain what the Sci-Fi Center is? It's comic shop. It's also has a theater part. Can you explain it to some people?
There's it's basically a multifaceted entertainment. It's the full name is the Science Fiction Retail and Event Center. So we have screening room. It differs in size depending on what location I was at. At one point, I had an 80 seat. Prior to Netflix and prior to streaming, I had it was like 80% of the store was a screening room area. We would host live events, independent movies, before you could get them and before they were available. And then it kind of fluctuates from that point. Anything to do loosely with science fiction, horror, fantasy, pop culture, I have Funko Pops, comic books. Comic books is the first thing. That's the thing I'm the most expert on. But I have a Star Trek section. I have a Star Wars section. We have cult magazine sections here. Just looking at some of the stuff I have here right now. And so a lot of it covers that, and a lot of it is connected. The way you keep relevant is to basically stay close to whatever's going on. The only hard part I had was the 90s. The 90s was not a good decade for comics.
Okay. When you started.
Yeah. And the 90s was what I call the garbage decade because you had a lot of storylines that were pretty much just built to bring in people who weren't going to consistently purchase comics.
Okay.
Wait, can I ask a quick question before we get into it? Because like just yesterday, someone mentioned, or I think there was a show where either I think it was Max and Brucifer, y'all were saying that like Rob Liefeld and like Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, those are all like the rock stars of the 90s, and they kind of like brought normies like like I would probably be into like the comic book sort of like awareness age. So I don't know, like William, you're saying that 90s kind of sucked for comic books. So
Well,
like,
you have to
what do you
realize
think?
Image was one company, and they weren't the major company. They sold a lot of comic books, but at any decade you look at, if DC and Marvel aren't doing well, then the business isn't doing well. And what they did is with the bulk of their sales came from the fact that they were new and they were different, and they were major names coming from major companies. So they were able to sustain themselves, Spawn, all that, you know, Wildcats, those things were Gen 13, those things were able to sustain themselves based on the creativity. The problem with DC and Marvel at the time is you had you know, from 86 on to about 1990 or so, Crisis. I don't think people who weren't there and weren't shopping at stores didn't see what kind of damage that Crisis of Infinite Earth, the great story everybody wants, Perez, rest in peace, great stuff. But what it did as far as turning off the people who had been collecting for a long time, it jammed up their continuity. So you lost a lot of those customers. So they were desperate to get customers back, but they wanted to do, you know, after Batman 89 came out, they realized that there's a recognition with some of these characters. So that's what they did. They put headline stories like, you know, Knights and Nightfall, you know, all that stuff, and Death of Superman. It fluffed up the market with a bunch of speculator buyers, and that jumped the print run for a lot of different things. Then the chromium covers and everything else, everything out of chromium. Used to be a chromium or embossed cover was something rare. Then it became a monthly thing. So what ended up happening is Diamond and a lot of these guys, the distributors, Marvel, they printed so many things out that the value went down, and a lot of people, you know, bet on these things. You know, like I said, I still get people to this day coming in with some of the stuff thinking that they have gold, and it's not. There's like, you know, a million of them out there, and that really hurt the market in the mid 90s. And plus the storytelling in the mid 90s for the most part was not that great. Nothing to really keep a hardcore collector on. You started having desperation moves like Marvel and DC, which is that's all Marvel versus DC was a desperation Hail Mary. The Amalgam Universe, it was a desperate Hail Mary to try to get people buying comics, getting Heroes Reborn. A lot of these, like, literally just throw something at the ceiling and see if it sticks, and most of it didn't. And that's what, you know, when by the time that the decade was almost up, you had Marvel near bankruptcy, and you had DC, if they hadn't been backed up by Warner Brothers, would have been in the same spot. So, you know, the 90s was not a good time to be a dealer, in my opinion.
Okay,
So
cool.
like, how did you kind of like push through it and then eventually break into like a more successful area where you're able to scale and then, you know, eventually like expand your inventory?
Magic the Gathering. Though that was huge in
Okay.
the mid 90s for us. A lot when the comics weren't selling or when there was just too many of them out there. Magic the Gathering came along like the right time, and you know, we held tournaments. We would hold weekend long tournaments. We would hold marathon tournaments, and that really drove traffic for me from like late 1995 all the way up to about 1998. Everything else just came from just basically paying attention and just cutting orders, cutting things out. Just basically stripping things down to the bare bones, you know.
So to have comic books part of your business, you have to be. You're saying you have to pay attention to orders and sales, and really on top of it, like you said, cut orders if something's not selling, and diversify your what you offer there, because you said you do other things when Netflix and streaming took over. You did other things, right? You were saying with your theaters.
Yeah, we still have it. I still have stuff that goes on. The past 11 years, I've built relationships with film companies and intermediate marketing. That helps push, especially with comic book movies. The ordering, cutting the order, that stuff is more like the 90s stuff. These days, it's more you just have to be able to identify a trend, and you have to be able to identify your customer, because I think the big mistake that I may have made, you know, 30 some odd years ago, and a lot of other stores, they paid attention to what other stores did. And you cannot do that. That is one of the 5 pathways to going out of business. Is focusing or worrying about what some other store is doing, what kind of successes that they've had, and you know, because it's easy for people to come in and compare your thing to somebody else's thing, but you really can't do that. I mean, that's something that a speculator can do. So you have to really much carry the things that the people coming through your door want, and are that you have to be able to identify your customer. That's rule number 1. If you can't identify your customer, you're blind.
I think one of the things that like is a reoccurring theme that it's kind of a back and forth that I noticed in when I spoke with you directly, when I go and visit your shop, and oftentimes when folks like give their opinions in the chat, it's oh well, there's like a few folks have mentioned like, oh, the rise in like anime fans. William, why don't you lean more into that? And it's kind of frustrating because like I know it is more frustrating for you because you have like the knowledge of what your client base is, and then as I spoke with you a bit more about it, it's like yeah, it makes sense that you wouldn't necessarily cater to them, but I want you to talk more about that.
Well, when it comes to anime, once again, you have the luxury of being a fan and spending someone else's money with your imagination, and that's the easy thing to do. But when you look at the actual academics of anime, and when somebody comes to me, like an RJ will come to me and say, well, anime is a top selling this, top selling that, or this is selling it. What you're looking at is raw numbers. You got to look at who's buying those units, where those units are being distributed. If somebody like a Barnes and Nobles or Walmart or a mass distributor is buying those, that doesn't necessarily translate to success for me. Units sold, units purchased from the main company that makes it doesn't necessarily do anything for me. My sales at the local level, we're going to determine whether something is viable.
Well, that would be going against one of your roles is chasing what other people are doing. Like, everything that your store, you pretty much, firsthand. Like, I'm not saying you don't like anime, but you really are in with all the trends with the comics and the sci-fi because you cover it on your channel too. You know all this stuff. So you feel like that's part of your strategy is the trends, and you'd be chasing something out. If you went into anime, you'd be chasing what someone else is doing that might be doing it better, that knows the trends better than you do in anime, manga.
Well,
I would be doing something that's not consistent with demand.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like the main takeaway too, and I don't want to put words in William's mouth, but like it's his specific demographic that I think he's, kind of like reiterated over and over. Like, yes, like, overall numbers, like he said, like manga, maybe outselling internationally more than comic books, but he's focused on his immediate customer base. Las Vegas, there's a lot of, tourist traffic. He's very close to the Strip, which is like one of the main reasons why tourists come to Las Vegas.
Cool.
So I understand where he's coming from, where I even talked to him, like when we went to Comic-Con, like he's looking for those high ticket or like those uncommon sort of like items that other folks cannot get, or it would be very difficult for them to get either online or at another retailer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you got to know who's coming through the door. That's all.
Sure. I would say something as an outsider. I've never been to I hope to visit the Sci-Fi Center one day. I really do. But as an outsider looking in, out of all the other things you said, something that I can immediately tell it's a difference is you are quite a personality and quite a character. And that makes that in the age of rising AI, I'm not anti-AI or anything, but customer service and knowing, Sci-Fi Center, Williams there, it seems like you are ingrained into this store and people know you, your personality, and that brings a consumer relationship that you don't get much often anymore. So I applaud you for that. It really feels like you're.
Yeah,
I would be visiting you all the time if I was in your area.
Yeah, all of us here, a lot of us are going to carry the same basic stuff. I mean, some people are going to have some like super high end stuff. I mean, like in different variety, but for the similarities are there. Each person, you really don't go in for that. You the person behind the counter. Like I got other competitor stores that we do a lot of business with, we do trade with. We're on good working, and each one of those is a different person. So when they go to that person's store, they like, there's a guy at Ralph over Alternate Reality I've known since I opened. And he gives me a lot of advice like that, but people go to that place because Ralph is the guy behind the counter that basically sheds a different light on everything, and everybody's going to have that different person. So there's a lot, we're all going to be different. So which is cool. I mean, like I said, you have to make that connection with the customer. You have to have that comfortability, because when people walk through the door for the very first time, they're kind of nervous, and you see a lot of this stuff, it can be overwhelming. You have to be the bridge to the merchandise. So I'm glad it's working so far. Knock on wood.
One thing I did like about just some of the deep dives into your history that you often share on your channel are the other, retail forum or, places that you've worked at as well that kind of informed you on how to scale that level of customer service and high touch point sort of visibility as a leader in your own store from all these other sort of like standards at other big box stores like Walmart and Home Depot. And I'm like, I come from retail market or background too, so I get it. Those jobs may not have been the best ever, but they gave me a foundation of standardized industry level skills to carry on professionally. So I thought that was really cool that you share that aspect of it too.
Yeah, every place you walk into, if it's still open, for the most part, if it's still open and they've grown over decades like that, they have the basic hallmarks of it. And it's basically, if someone has taken the time to drive down to where you're at, to get out of their vehicle and to walk through your door, they're pretty much there. You should be able to make some type of connection with them one way or another, even if they don't buy something. Not everybody has to buy something the first time. I mean, we get a lot of people here, that come in for the very first time and they're looking around. They may be 2 weeks away from a payday, things like that. You want to basically have the same framework for as if you were going to make $1 million sale that day. Even if it doesn't happen, you just want to be able to make that connection, make that person feel like they're welcome to come back, even if it's not that particular day. And that's a lot of the big box places do that. Displays, things like that, make what you want to sell. Like there's nothing in the store that I really want to move quickly that's below the knees. That's a rule I have. If it's below the knees, you're basically putting it down on the ground, and that's where your customer reads from top to bottom, left to right. So you put your merchandise, because that's how you read. That's how you look. When you see somebody, you don't look at their feet first. You look at their face first. And then you go down from there. When you read a book, you read from left to right. So you want to set up your things like that. It's one of the things I learned from working in big boxes. You want to make it, your customer's not an idiot, but you have to assume that, this is your domain, not theirs. You have to make sure that your domain is readable to them.
Cool.
Oh, and I would love for you to share more of your history around a lot of the community events that you host, not just movie screenings, but also you're really ingrained into the plaza that that your shop is at. And I noticed everyone knows who you are, and you always make ample use of the space there because y'all, if you ever go there, it's a full there's lots of space to host outdoor movie screenings.
Cool.
William has murder mysteries there. He has wrestling events. He does it all. So
coming up in April.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it. Oh, and then the Tromania event that you have coming up too. If you want to share more about that.
Yeah, we're in a plaza called the New Orleans Square. It's a double-decker. I'm on the second floor facing a large parking lot that we use for, I've shown it sometime when we're on the show. We have a 40-foot screen and we can do drive-ins in. And then the middle has a courtyard that we can also hang a screen in. We can do wrestling events. I've done several wrestling events. We have one coming up, WrestleMania weekend. Also, we use the plaza. It's an old school looking plaza. And we've used it to host Jack the Ripper, Project Ripper, which is basically a 2-day event where we staged body parts and clues all over the plaza, and you had to collect the clues to find out who did it, and then you had to make a presentation at the end of the 2 days to figure out who did it. Yeah, so we had people. We had an autopsy. We had an actual person with a prosthetic, and they had, so we could do the autopsy so that you could find out what type of weapon was used. And you had to use all those clues and evidence. You just couldn't come in and guess. You actually had to put everything together in order to be eligible to pick who the Ripper was. And we got that coming up here pretty soon. Again, part 2. But yeah, we use the plaza as an extension of the store.
I have a kind of question based on what you're saying with events. Is there anything over your history of the Sci-Fi Center, favorite moments, coolest moments, maybe like a comic coming in or something, or maybe like a guest or I'm sure you.
I was going to ask too, did Nick Cage ever come into your shop?
Nick Cage, I've met him here in Vegas, but he's never come into here before. When it comes to comic that came in, a couple of days ago, somebody donated comics. Yeah, donated created comics, and I did. And a Batman 423 was in there, a book I'd been looking for years. It's a
wow.
And I posted that, and I am going to get that signed this.
That's great July. That you get the support like that. That you get donations frequently.
Yeah, people come in because they're emptying out their garage or something like that, and they just they'll drop them by. and then I won't even know what they are until I flip through it. A lot of times you get it, it's stuff that you can just fill a quarter bin with, but this particular person had some decent stuff in there, and I pulled it out. So stuff like that. As far as guests, I mean, dealing with Lloyd Kaufman is always cool. Anytime, I don't care how big the studio is, if there's a studio head that frequents your place and actually is, we can host events and interview with, that's still cool. Choma's still is.
We got to get James Gunn there. He's made appearances in other comic shops. We need to get him to Vegas.
Well, before he, was, I was setting up something with Lloyd because he was part of Choma.
Yeah.
Then the whole DC thing happened, so the availability kind of.
I would love to, because you have the connection with Lloyd. Like, that would be awesome if there's a Troma event and then James Gunn comes and visits Lloyd too. That would be great.
I sent him a text and he sent them the questions, and that by a month later is when the whole DC thing started happening. So
okay.
I don't expect to get those questions answered anytime soon.
Yeah, thank you to William for giving me the opportunity to meet Lloyd in person. I got to go to the event and help kind of like straighten up and kind of, help set up a little bit and, schmooze and things like that. So I got to get some decent amount of FaceTime with Lloyd and some of his team, and I got to watch a bunch of the different movies from Troma. So yeah, William and his community grassroots sort of events, they're very much they make very niche topics like the ones that he talked about very accessible for folks like me who have an interest, but they're a little intimidated. They're not sure if how to get into it, but he makes it very beginner friendly and just a welcoming open space for folks to just come and enjoy themselves. And he's very hospitable with his space too. So even if you're a newbie or a veteran, he treats everyone the same.
Cool.
Yeah, 70% of my walkthrough is tourism, so there's a lot of first timers there.
That's great.
Yeah, I would love to kind of pivot into, okay, so William, obviously, you've been in the community for a long time, and a lot of us are familiar with your work and appearances on other podcasts, but could you give us a little bit more of what made you want to, take the leap into actually engaging in panel discussions with other folks, and kind of how did you find this place?
Chris Wong Swinton, and I've already knew of YouTube, but Chris Wong Swinton and Dave Pena, we had promoted the original Justice League, and it ended up being a kind of a disaster. Well, because what ended up happening is we started hearing things prior to it getting released that there was a lot of changes in the movie, but somebody telling you there were changes in the movie, and then actually seeing the movie and seeing those changes and then taking a couple of days to reflect that. That's how I started looking on to see if anybody had the same kind of okay, I saw the trailer, but that wasn't in the trailer. This doesn't seem consistent. And then that's how I found Chris Wong Swinton first. And then through him, I found Film Junkie. And then I would just watch those shows consistently because we promoted the store. So we had all of the Justice League stuff in there, and they sent us Alex Ross giant paintings and stuff without Superman.
Oh, wow.
We still have some of the stuff here, the cups and everything. And I actually showed that the other day. We had the giant, 7-foot things that you see on the bus shelves. We had those. We did a huge promotion. We still have the buttons from Justice League, the little silver buttons. So we went all in with it. And then, when the results of it, and then over a couple of days, it just got on YouTube looking for, hey, is there anybody else that saw what I saw? And then Chris Wong Swinton was already on it, and then Dave after that. And then I just kept watching and watching and watching. And then Enosh was on Vodka Stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I had sent in a video question. I sent in a couple of video questions for Dave, and then he put them on the thing, and that's how Enosh found me, and then he invited me on his channel, and then the rest was pretty much. It took a while because I didn't know, how I would want to approach that format as far as YouTube goes, and I don't have an opinion crafted for any particular person. If you ask me a question about something I've been experiencing, I'm going to just give you the best answer I can, and that's not always. I wasn't necessarily interested in being. Just to say something crazy to get people to watch something. The answers are what they are. Yeah, the answers are what they are. And I didn't know if my realm of communication would be right for it. And then as I got more comfortable with it, and then Enosh took a hiatus, and then we literally were running. We were doing his channel for a while. And at that point, it got to the point where there was enough volume there to the interest there, that maybe we just take it to a different level. I had already had the channel, I just hadn't done anything on it, and then at that point we just started simulcasting, mainly to keep the rhythm going on his channel because we didn't know when he was going to come back. And then once he started making his way back, even if it's semi-regular, I started moving over to the Sci-Fi Center's proper format.
Cool,
And that's
cool.
the rest is history.
I think one of like the biggest trademarks when you started to appear more on streams was the Justice League cutout that you would always have in the background. I miss it. It's still in your shop. I know it's there, but it's like you would have that for forever. That was like how like your signature little background was. So I just wanted to remind people of that if they ever like recall seeing you like a few years ago.
Well, business dictated that this went up instead. So that this is one of the main money walls that people see coming and going. So it was cool. That was cool for a while. That's because I didn't have anything, as I started running out of wall space, I needed to execute every piece of wall space that I had. So yeah, the cardboard cutouts are still up there. They're actually in the ceiling storage, but they're still here.
Nice.
With your love of comics, sci-fi, any other media or fandoms that you're like? Do you like music? Video games,
music. I'm not a gamer at all.
Oh,
I'm not a gamer at all. I
am
in
there
the
when it's. I had to throw one old joke in there just because you're. Well, you were there when it started. Video games started. I was there. Just kidding. I had to do. I only did one because your audience does that to you. I respect you. You still look great.
Yeah, I was there when Atari came out. But here's the thing: it's not that I don't. It's not that I don't like video games. I don't have the time.
That's true.
It's a matter of if you're going to do something like that, it consumes a lot of time.
Well, being a business owner, that I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're still a gamer. Like you play Magic the Gathering, or you're fluent, or you're proficient at it. Yeah.
But I'm also with Magic, I could integrate it. I was selling it at the time. We were hosting tournaments at the time, so I could be consumed by it. And it wasn't going to take me away from anything. I don't sell video games. Video games, to do them well, take, a lot of involvement. And so, it's a difference between if I ever got into something like that, I think it would hurt my business because I would I would have an addictive personality. So I stay away from stuff like that. Like I said, Magic was different because I could there was always an excuse. I still have my deck. I have a red and blue deck that I've had since Ice Ages, basically. So
they're making a TV series now.
Yeah. I don't know how that's gonna flow, but I'll give it a shot. But yeah, when it comes to gaming and with Magic and card games like that, it was easy because they were on the shelf and it was literally, like I said, comics stopped moving and that started going. So, but yeah, when it comes to video games and all that kind of stuff and PlayStation, things like that, I know a lot of people who play those things and I see the amount of time that they put in. And if I put in just a quarter of the time that they put in, I would be done here. I wouldn't be sitting here.
Since you have a comic shop, how's your personal comic collection? Do you have a lot, or
no?
You used to? No.
I get key issues and stuff like that, that 423 that I picked up. That's for me. I have amazing. Most of my stuff I get like Amazing Spider-Man. I have certain key issues that I keep, but pretty much I see so much stuff coming in, circling. I have my access to it. If I ever wanted to keep it close to the vest like that, but for the most part, I have like a couple of boxes of my own, that I have that I would never sell.
That might be a downfall of some comic book owners. They want to keep everything they get and they never sell anything. Yeah. Oh, I want this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's more of, you buy things like that to be surrounded by them and to maybe sell them at one point, but I'm already surrounded by them and I do sell them at most points. So it's the need, right? For me, I don't need to do as much as I do that. I do have a couple, mainly to get autographs. Like I said, when I go to conventions and stuff to get them autographed, I get them framed, things like that. But for the most part, I don't have a big collection at all.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of signatures, I know I mentioned your signature Justice League cutout that you used to have, but then also like your work uniform, like that's your signature trait right there. I'm telling you, we all ask for you to sell merch, but we understand you don't own the logo. So tell us more about that. Do you want to tell us more about like your history about that and like why
we promoted Shazam back when we promoted Shazam. Everybody that went with us got one of these shirts or something that looked really like it with our logo on it. you know. And when you showed up, the original ones, in fact, this one is one of them. They glow in the dark. So when
That's
you turn
cool.
off all the lights out, when we took our picture, all the bolts were glowing.
Oh,
So everybody that was with us got one of these, and that was the very first time I put one on. Since then, we do much larger events. There's a lot of times when we're in crowds. We'll do something at a movie theater at AMC to where I have my crowd of people. So we'll get like 100 seats for a particular screening, right? And they all have to meet in a certain place. We have to check their names off. We have to, and it's chaotic, but a bright red shirt with a lightning bolt stands out, and I can just say, hey, I can post this symbol on there. If you haven't met us yet, but you're going to one of our screenings, look for somebody wearing this, and then it's just easy to find.
You're iconic with it. Like, I can't imagine you without it now. You wear it more than Shazam.
And I do have more than one. I've gotten that question. I have several of these. Different sizes. The only difference is the bolt is higher up on certain ones, and there's a QR code on the back of the neck on some of the ones. So when I'm standing, they can just scan the QR code while I'm at the theater. But yeah, that's how that came out. Back when the first Shazam came out.
Can you remember your first comic, or since you like music, your first record, 8-track or cassette tape or something?
8-track.
I love this.
Don't have any 8-tracks. That's my dad. First album, first record that I bought.
First one that you got. Do you remember your parents got you? You're like, wow.
Pyromania. The first one my parents bought me was Pyromania from Def Leppard. Back then.
Oh, cool. And then what one did you buy first?
Metallica's Black Album.
Oh,
I had everything else, but that was the first one I bought with my own money, and it was the first tape from theirs that I had that wasn't a bootleg with a bunch of other different songs from all their albums. It was the first one I actually purchased in 1991.
Do you remember any first comic?
First comic for me, and I actually have it here.
Oh, really? You still have your first comic?
Yeah, hold on. I think it's going to be the X-Men for Africa, Marvel for Africa thing that they did. For Ethiopia, and it's here somewhere. That was the first one I bought. The first one that was bought for me is gonna be like a Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man, like 100.
Cool.
Like that, the old man bought that for me, and then at that point, like I just started hitting. From 82 to like 88, it was the Hey Kids comics racks for me. Because that's all they, we weren't a lot of stores. Stores weren't prolific in the 80s. You had some, but they weren't like what they are now. So I had to get them from anywhere I could get.
Cool.
One thing I did also want to shout out was that although you're very fluent in a lot of like the history of, comic books throughout all the ages, even like outside of ones that you have like immediate like memories of, you're not someone who likes to dwell in the past. You're very much, forward thinking, and you want to see new innovative ideas on the screen, whether or not they are direct adaptions of previous printed material or otherwise. So I would just love to like hear more around like, what is it that, makes you more forward thinking, I guess, and what is it that you hope to see more of, either in like films, definitely more in films and like comic book media in general?
Like I've always said it 1,000 times, nostalgia is like a time bomb. If you pull the right buttons, everybody lives. If you pull the wrong one, everybody dies. And you have to be really, really careful, because when you do something that's rooted in the past and how you felt about it in the past, you forget that it's in the past. And the environment that those things took place in is pretty much a part of that experience. That's why whenever they try to remake a Crow thing, it generally is going to fail. Red Dawn, things like that, because the atmosphere and the time was so much a part of what made those things what they are, that you trying to do it here 20, 30 years later with a completely inconsistent environment, it really hurts and it looks lame. When it comes to movies and things like that, I just want less reboots and less reimaginings, because I think that if you cannot capture 1994, don't do a Crow movie based on Eric Draven. If you can't capture the Cold War, don't do a movie that needs the Cold War to make it work. Red Dawn is a Cold War movie. We're not in the Cold War anymore. And, things like that. Just unless you're going to make a period piece But if you're just going to reimagining and just slap your name on it, then just probably you're better off going on to a different idea. So I'm not a big nostalgia. I mean, it had a rich life to, I grew up with a lot of this stuff, but what's appropriate for 6-year-old, 7-year-old me is not necessarily appropriate for, 30, 40, 50-year-old, it's just different. And I think people, they cling to things that make them feel good instead of going after new things that will make them feel better. So.
Max, any thoughts or follow-ups on that?
I had a lot of my friends. I am okay with them trying again. It doesn't erase the old one for me. I do think that's where a lot of them fall short, though, is they try to recapture something that's not there anymore. I was enjoying the Crow movie, but I still didn't finish it too. I'm part of the problem. Yeah. But I like it when I think there's a big market for it. It doesn't, most of the time it doesn't work, though. I agree with you there. Most of the time it doesn't work. It's hard to.
Well, your median audience wasn't even alive when The Crow was released.
Yeah, true.
So you're selling things it's like the Keaton thing. When you're telling me, oh, we're gonna put Keaton in and everybody's gonna go see it. I was in line for Michael Keaton's Batman. I knew that wasn't gonna be.
I disagree there. I think Keaton is a draw, but the movie has to be above average. I love the movie. I have friends that think it's one of the best comic book movies all time, and I think they are completely wrong.
But Keaton's not.
And I think James Gunn was just doing PR. There's no way he thinks that's one of the best movies of all time. There's just no way.
Are you calling Tom Cruise a liar too?
He's doing PR. He's doing He's doing the Hollywood thing. They all do. I'm not calling him a liar. They're just smoothing it. They're just making it nice so they could get their projects going.
Regardless of whether Keaton did a quality performance or not, is not relevant because he wasn't relevant as Batman to the median audience that you were trying to attract. You're trying to attract an audience who's that's like 3 Batmans ago. Your median audience is between 26 and 35. He wasn't relevantly on the screen for 3 decades before you drug him out, and you did nothing relevant in that interim to make him that. It would be different if we had a book, I'm going on numbers. I'm going on numbers and knowing that character and promoting that movie and the responses from the people we talked to. He didn't do a horrible job. He did great in the movie, but you have to understand where once again, you got to know where your customer is. A fan doesn't have to understand that and know that. If you're a retailer and the movies are retail, you have to understand where your audience is, and they failed there.
I think Michael Keaton's Batman transcends a lot of those traps, though. Like, it would be like bringing back Luke Skywalker. If Christopher Reeves was still alive, if they would have brought him back, I think people have seen this stuff through the generations with their families.
They've seen it, but they don't care. See, when you're talking about Star Wars and things like that, you've done things in the last 25 years. Star Wars is a lot bigger than just one character. And the thing that you had is most of the people in your median audience were connecting to the Bale Batman era.
That's fair.
And you have to know that if you're going to drop that kind of money on something,
so they should have brought Bale back.
No, what they should have done. That's a whole other stream. What they should have done is they needed to first understand where their audience was at. Did you really need Batman in there for that? I think that the last regime, that was their Batman. If you look at the age demographic of the people who were running Warner Brothers and DC Films prior to that was the Batman that they connected to. But you know what? I connect to this comic sitting over here. It doesn't mean this guy coming in is going to have that strong connection. You got to do some research. This is coming from somebody who Keaton, that was the first cinematic major Batman that I saw. But even I understand. 14-year-old me is not coming to 2021, 2022 movies. And you can't just assume that something is relevant because it was big at a given time. Like I said, you literally have an entire trilogy and a Heath Ledger Joker. I mean, that is relevant in their eyes. And I think, like I said, nostalgia can work if you do it right. But if you don't do it right, that movie not doing well had nothing to do with Keaton in it. But, now there's a lot of finger pointing going along. So, hey, how you doing, Larry?
So, like, really quick, okay, so since we're bringing up comparisons to, Star Wars and other legacy IPs and how those have more audience, current audience attachment because they've been consistent as far as like those reoccurring characters. Let's say like, do you think that that's the same for, you know, Spider-Man No Way Home, where we got all these like, you know, different past Spider-Man villains and, you know, actors and things like that? Like that landed because it was pretty much the same generation, or do you feel like
Pretty
it
much.
was pretty much the same generation?
Yeah, you're talking about, so if you were born on the day that Batman 89 got released, you realize how old you would be if you had never seen it, how old you would be by the time the Flash got released. That was stupid. That's something that people with bigger degrees and making a lot more money should have taken into accountability. But if you were around when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man wrapped up in 07, 7 years later, not even 7 or 6 years later, you had another Spider-Man. And then 3 years later after that, you had another one. So you're talking about a generation, and all those movies, no live action Spider-Man movie has drawn less than $700 million. So you're talking about something that's popular on a much wider scale than that in modern times. That is literally, you don't even have to have that handed down to your parents in some degree. You could literally have lived all those and still been relatively young. You could have started as a 10-year-old with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and been not only ready and part of the main demographic and median demographic when Andrew Garfield came out, but you could be having kids now that you're bringing to all of those movies, and then Tom Holland. So there's a generation handoff there that just wasn't there when you're talking about the last time Michael Keaton was on screen was 1992, and here you come literally 3 decades later, 2 generations in between. It just doesn't work, you know.
I appreciate how, like, you know, direct and forward and you know, the way that you communicate your points of view, but you're not dismissive of other folks, but you're very, you know, like, you stand on business for your own, you know, sort of, you know, points of view. So I did want to kind of get more, you know, context around like what made you such, you know, like an assertive speaker to the point where like, you know, that's kind of one of your trademarks. But what I'm calling out is that you also don't dismiss other people or make their opinions seem invalid in comparison.
Failure. You try enough stuff, and most of the stuff you try, it fails. Nobody remembers the failures because usually they go like a whimper. But, you know, when you try things like some of the things that you see studio tries, not on that level, but anything like that, you do trial and error and you see, okay, this didn't work. This cover is really cool in this comic. Man, everybody should love this, right? You know, everybody loved this when it came out. And then you put it on your shelf and it's not the right circumstances. You realize, okay, fanboy me thought that was really cool. Fanboy me ain't paying for shit. Business owner me has to take that risk. So you don't want to dismiss somebody for being a fan, because I am one. I understand that. But at the same time, you have to, whenever somebody comes up with a crazy idea or something like that, the last question, okay, who's going to pay for it? What's the case you're going to make when you walk into somebody's office because if you're spending your own money, you're going to go broke. What's the case are you going to make into somebody who's going to really push this in motion? What's that case going to be made? How's it going to be paid for? Where's the back end money going to go? Where's the revenue being generated? A fan just says, well, I want it. Wanting something is not enough. You have to be able to, because that person's going to take whatever you tell them, and he's going to go into a bigger room with somebody who probably has the money. And if you haven't made the case, if you made the fanboy case, you're going to get laughed out of the office. So I can't, when I try to talk to another fan, it's when we're having a basic, wow, that was a really cool thing conversation. That's one conversation. But now when you're getting angry about something not being made or something not, a bad idea, one of the pet peeves people, say, well, when a stupid idea turns into reality into one of these stupid ass movies, and then people, end up losing their jobs or things don't happen and plans get ruined, I say, well, that should have never been made. Well, I get people, how can you say that? Well, it shouldn't have been. Look how much it cost. Look at the credibility that went on. It wasn't well thought out, well intentioned, but that's it. Now a fan can be like, well, I want to see it. Like, okay, pay for it. So I try to make it to the point where you bring everything back to the risk factor. When you don't have a risk factor involved, you can say and do the dumbest shit that anybody ever sees or hears. But when there's a risk factor involved and you're not just, flying off on a helium balloon, there's a weight down to it of reality, then it's a different conversation. You want to respect somebody's fandom, but you also have to, you want to try to have a conversation with them and give them the credibility, the benefit of the doubt that they can understand that, okay, You may want this. I want this. Who's paying for it? Who's paying for Raised by Wolves, a show that I did not want to get canceled. But when I looked at how much it cost, I understood.
You know, that hurts still, but I like that too.
Yeah. I want Mindhunters back, but Netflix didn't see business reasons to do it. So I want it back, right? So is that enough?
They're going to bring it back. They're going to bring it back.
I think they will, but when it's right for their business, you know what I mean?
Well, there's always like this ongoing sort of like, I think it's a rhetorical question whenever I see it, but it's probably literal for other folks. They're like, why was this even made? No one wants this. You know, I'm not paying for this. So like, what do you have to say about, you know, that sort of point of view?
I always get people say, well, it doesn't matter if no, and then they'll bring up, well, nobody asked for this, nobody asked for that, and it was successful. No, you need to know if somebody wants it. You listen, you're risking other people's money, other people's credibilities, other people's reputation for some fly on the wall shit. Yeah, there have been things that have done well, and it's just out of nowhere. But for every one of those, there's a whole bunch of other ones that are misguided. You have to understand if you're selling something to somebody. So first thing you need to know, is there an audience for this? You have to understand there's an audience for this, and you have to mitigate the risk, because once that money's spent, it's gone. So when somebody says, well, you know, they bring up a bunch of different examples, usually they're bringing up stuff that was low risk or within a genre or connected to subgenres that mitigated the risk. But when you're saying like the Wonder Twins movie, okay, people can say, well, they should make that because nobody asked for Back to the Future, and look how successful that is. That's the dumbest analogy anybody has ever brought to me, because you're cherry picking different moments in different eras and different circumstances and trying to say that, well, this isn't a dumb one. So no, you do have to have to a certain degree people asking for it. Otherwise, you don't even have the starting point of your audience. You're guessing with other people's money.
This is great, man. He's the one of the most energetic guests we have. He's on it.
You're on it.
Well,
this is why like we always try to like get William to add like an extra hour or so. We'll just throw in like, you know, a random red herring comment, and then he'll like, you know, go on for another hour, and we're just like, yes, more content.
With that, I'm sad to say that we're close to the hour, so I want to be cognizant of your time because I know you have other plans too. So we have questions. Should we start?
I have until 3.
Okay. All right. Cool. So then go right ahead. Then just tell me when we should start questions and other topics too.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Max.
What was I gonna say? Okay. I'm interested in physical media. Do you have anything else you collect? Like, since you like music, do you collect records? Do you actively
collect records because I'm too cheap?
Okay.
I don't collect a lot of physical media. Period. Because
no movies.
I have some here. I get like, you know, special stuff like Blade Runner 2049. I'll get those editions.
What if I bring you some VHS? Would you like that?
Yeah, I have some VHS here.
Oh, okay.
I would love to carry more physical media, but once again, it would be basically an ornament. I have to wait for the demographic, and they will. VHS will come back, just like records will come back, just like
it's back. It's back.
Yeah. I think there'll be, you know, you'll see more of those in wider. But right now you just got to be careful of it because of the markup on it is you know, it's not necessarily favorable for the retailer. That's why a lot of them, you know, come and go out of it. But I have physical media. I pick up VHSs all the time, but not a lot, not as lot as I used to. Like, I mean, you know, from 2000 whatever all the way up to now, I used to have a rack for physical media, and then times change. If it comes back, I would gladly go in that direction.
Oh, cool. I remember having you on one of my podcasts in the past about collecting physical media, and I wanted you to be there specifically for collecting comic books, because a lot of folks, I think this is one of like the further back thoughts of a lot of people, like, you know, ebooks are definitely a thing and you can access a lot of these scans online and things like that, but it is important to, you know, preserve, you know, the actual like source material as well. So like, do you have any thoughts around, you know, the significance of that yourself as someone who actively collects?
Listen, when it comes to the e-stuff, I would rather you be in the genre, even if that's your way in. I'd rather have you be in the genre and reading them online than not be a comic book collector at all. However, there is something, and it covers comics, it covers physical media, it covers anything that you sell, anywhere there is a gathering point or place for people, and it's called Random Encounters. It's literally why I'm here. I had a random encounter with other people. We got together, we talked about things. You cannot do that online. You can do that online in a chat room, but the actual encounter itself is not is relegated and fixed. You go to a bookstore, you're in the horror section, you see somebody buying something you just bought the last week, right there's a random encounter, there's a conversation. If you're at a comic book store and somebody picks up a graphic novel, and you've read it, you've seen it, and they're cool, or they have a question that the guy behind the counter is busy with another customer, and you can interact. Those are random encounters that you actually need. You don't grow without them. One of the things about not having places like that, or the decrease in physical media, and especially when comic stores is like that, is when you're online and you click on a comic, you're buying an item. You're not necessarily buying a story. Only humans, in my opinion, can sell stories. And I have a little model here. It's a sign somewhere. It says, "Don't sell an item, sell a story." In my belief, only human to humans, can sell stories. Whether we can do it on a format like this, but just a catalog somewhere, you clicking on a certain thing doesn't give you the body of why that's even there. Why are you clicking on the X-Men omnibus? There's a whole bunch of other stuff that led up to that, or what does that mean? And you can't click that. You can get a summary, you can go on YouTube and find out things about that, but that trust relationship between a retailer and a customer, that can really, in my opinion, happens best in person. So yeah, I would love to have you in the John. I would rather have you collecting online than not collecting at all. But if I had the preference to get you in here, and I think anybody who's ever sold anything like that, the preference is to be face-to-face with the customer.
What are the key issues that I know this answer, but like what for the audience, everyone watching, what are the key comic books that you recommend to any newbie who has no clue what to start with?
So we covered this last week. The first thing, it depends on, you got to have qualifying questions when they walk through the door, because that's how you're going to know where to go. All right. So if they're in the Marvel or DC, so if they're in the DC, they're basically going to know the Trinity. Every man, woman, and child knows Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, So the first thing I hand them right off the shelf, and I've done this before, is going to be Justice League. I call it Justice League. It's DC New Frontiers. I have the comics, and I have the actual, the hardcovers, stuff like that. But this is something that they can get into. It gives them the basic understanding of the character. It's not necessarily a connected story like, Hush or anything like that, even though we got, trades for those too. But it gives them the basic understanding of the character and allows them to go where they want to go. If one of the qualifying questions is how did you find about comics, or what have you been seeing? A lot of them will say I watched a TV series, and this character's in a TV series. So right now we're covering, on our channel and everywhere else, is Daredevil. Now, if you're watching Daredevil, for those of you who understand, a lot of Frank Miller influences in that. I mean, he's literally, it's a composite Frank Miller Bible what that show is, and then Born Again is going to be even tighter. So if you watch Daredevil on TV and you've never been a collector before, this is one of the things I'll hand them. And these are right here too, because like I said, they'll make it 2 steps in, and then you can kind of look at the body expressions. Batman, you're into Batman. Say you like the Flash, you like Ben Affleck as Batman. I'm just throwing it out there. His is based largely on The Dark Knight Returns. If you don't want anything that is like super connected to anything, then one of the greatest stories, period, told is going to be Watchmen. Watchmen, you don't have to be in the Superman, Batman, anything else. You don't even have to be in the Charlton characters that they're based on to read this and enjoy it. From there, you can go wherever you want. If you come back after you read that, then we know where you're at.
I feel like I'm getting homework.
Yeah.
This is homework. These are required.
This is good homework, though. I can see why your success, William. You had so many recommendations right off the bat. This is great.
Kingdom Come, to me, is the best Superman story that's been put
out.
Once again, if it's a brand new collector and they're intimidated by 1,000 issues of Action Comics, 1,000 issues of Detective, you can start them out with a basic understanding. Their second and third trip is where you start zeroing them in on what type of era they want to be. But even to that point, there's a lot of trade paperbacks that are out there that you don't have to. A lot of it's going to be what kind of financial situation do you want to put yourself in buying these things? Do you have a lot of money? Do you want high-end collector stuff? If you just want to get into the story, we'll just get you the trade paperback that covers, 15, 16 issues. And then if you want to become that collector that buys those individually, you can, but you don't have to have 1,000-pound weight over your head when you walk into a place and you don't know where to start. So I have those right in the front behind there.
I could just see the aura that Sci-Fi Center presents when someone comes in and asks a question. He's like, Williams, come here. I'm going to show you what to do, where you need to go, where you need to start. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you're just answering questions. I mean, what are you into? Why, what's your goal? Is it buying something for your kid, or do you want to see those characters in a different light? Like if you watch Daredevil, there are certain characters in there that I didn't think they did right, but they did right. And they couldn't do Karen Page, heroin addict, porn star. They couldn't do that on a show that was eventually going to air either on night. So they made decisions with it.
You're Disney Plus, right?
Yeah, Disney Plus. So you couldn't do that. But hey, what's up, man? But in something like this, you can get the full weight of her character.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Go ahead, Max, and then I was gonna check in with the chat to see if we wanted to dive into their questions.
Sure. Look at him working. Look at this, man.
I know.
This is how you succeed.
He doesn't stop. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a couple off the wall questions I try to squeeze in. If you had all the money in the world, what would be the perfect William day? What would you do? Would you be on YouTube? Would you be at this? Like if you had money was no object, what would be your perfect day? Would you travel? Would you be talking nerd stuff? Okay.
I don't like traveling. The Army took all the travel out of me. I don't want to. I was born in another country.
Would you boot up a live stream? What would you be doing? What would you?
I would do pretty much everything I do now, but with just more.
You're living the dream
recently.
then.
I'm going. I'm gonna buy. I probably buy more stuff like this. I would probably host bigger events, and I would go to wrestling events all the time.
Okay,
basically everything I would fly to like LA. That's where my home. I would fly to LA more often to go to sporting events. But for the most part, I would be doing everything I do now, just on a higher volume, on a ridiculous volume.
So you're already living the dream, William. That's
Pretty
a
much.
great answer.
You did say that you would love to have a home in Japan, right? Tokyo?
I want to be, I would do something in Tokyo because I think I'm going to Tokyo in January. So I want
awesome.
to, that's a city that has a heavy influence on science fiction.
Have you been there before?
Have you been there before? Not been,
wow.
Yeah. So it will be my first time. And
are you going to vlog, William the Vlogger?
Yeah. I pretty much do that pretty much whatever I do now. That's one big difference between our channel is we Instagram, YouTube, we try, bring people and put them like right there. Cause if I'm having fun with it, somebody might have fun watching it. So.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just remembered. So speaking of your love of sci-fi and fantasy in general, a lot of it coming from Japan as well. But one Western IPs that I think has influenced Japan even more was a Blade Runner, one of your favorite films. I'd love to hear more around what is it that connects you to that movie and is such a ongoing sort of legacy IP for you.
I saw it when I was 8, so my brain was still forming. So to see something like that at 8 was kind of new. And then what ended up happening is you saw the world form around it. And as you get older, you see like Ghost in the Shell, you see Akira, you see a lot of anime. That's the you see a lot of the things that are out there. You see, and then you go backwards from that and you see Metropolis, which Vince Lang did, it influenced Sid Mead, who was the set director on that. And you start to see, and that's where you start to make the connections where one thing to another and to another. There are things that have been influenced by Blade Runner that they don't even know they've been influenced by Blade Runner. But when you look at something like Blade Runner and Black Lotus, these are anime guys that had been so heavily influenced by that. The genre had been so they made Blade Runner and Black Lotus as a homage to that. So It answers basic questions. Even 2049 answers basic questions. It's more than a science fiction movie because if you strip away all the sets and all the flying cars and everything, Blade Runner has a basic concept to it that anybody can relate to. And I think, like I said, as an 8-year-old seeing that, imagine seeing something that big. And the only science fiction I had at that point was Star Wars and Star Trek. So that was something different. And like I said, it just stayed with me throughout my adult life. So.
Okay, I have a question I like to ask. What's currently in your watch list, playlist, or bucket list? Maybe Japan was one of them. It sounds like Japan was on your bucket list. You wanted to go to Japan. Anything else that you could recommend that you're currently listening to music or that you currently watched?
My musical taste is all over the place.
Good, good.
What I currently watched. I watch a lot of documentaries. I saved a lot of the
Okay,
movies from that
cool.
block of times. I watch a lot of crime shows. I watch Cold Case
Nice.
Files. I watch First 48. I watch a lot of those. But as far as like actual TV shows, I've been watching I watch a lot of YouTube because, like I said, there's a lot of people out there that make presentations that are relevant to what I do. But as far as what I listen to, it's very random. I mean, you could probably throw something out there, and I probably listened to it within the last. I use YouTube Music, so I just let it roll through.
Actually, I love watching like cop and crime shows with my parents. That's something we enjoy together. Is there any current shows that you could recommend? Like that is something you're into? Like
no, I don't watch a lot of the actual ones. I watch the documentary ones, like the real life ones.
Okay.
Like I said, Mindhunters was the one that I recommended.
Yeah. That's
need to see.
masterclass. Yeah.
Yeah, if
Okay,
they
cool.
haven't seen it, anything that's based on serial killers, documentaries on serial
interesting.
killers,
Okay.
we're big into that. So,
Oh, cool. That's all the questions I had. So go ahead, Rhea, and then we'll get
Nice.
to the.
I've been checking with the chat. They have a bunch of awesome questions as well, and we can get into those. Those are probably going to take a good hour to get
Okay.
through.
All right. Well, we'll take turns reading these. I'll start with Ryan Hartwell. Who's your favorite comic book writer?
Frank Miller. Yeah, Frank Miller.
What
and
about
then-
current Frank Miller? You still like him now?
It doesn't change.
Because some people are like, "Oh, is okay."
Well, they're saying that because he's doing characters that he does not have. He doesn't have to transform and put his stamp on. When you see, I mean, I enjoy Batman Frank Miller more than I enjoy Sin City Frank Miller.
Okay.
Because he's creating those characters where he's defining the others. So a lot of them will say that because there is a difference between his own IPs that he does versus the things that he puts his signature on. So, but I read it all.
All right.
What does William think of digital comics? I think you
Once
mentioned
again,
this, but yeah, go ahead.
if that is your way in, that's great. I'd rather have you in than not in at all. I prefer if you use the digital comics not as a sole source of those. If you use those as a means to get to a dealer or get to that random conversation. So it's a double-edged sword. I would rather I'm happy that you have something to get in with, but once you're in, I hope that you get into the actual physical media because there's a lot of fun there.
All right, I'll handle this one from Little Movie Perp. Favorite car chase, and then I'm gonna add to that. What's some of your favorite movies?
Favorite car chase is gonna be Bad Boys 2.
Ooh.
Oh,
You gave the right answer for this person that he loves Michael Bay. He loves Bad Boys. I actually
when they're
I don't have Bad Boys 2 down here. I
think it's Bad Boys 2 when they're throwing the cars. The Haitians are throwing the cars at them.
I got the Bad Boys 1. I have Bad Boys 2 upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Any other favorite movies you could think of?
Oh, favorite movies? Oh man, I mean Godfather, Godfather 1, Godfather 2.
Star Wars, Star Trek in there?
Back to the Future? Star Trek. No, Back to the Future was just something I went to. Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, Star Trek First Contact. I mean, Metropolis, Nosferatu, not the newest one. The newest one was weird. It was all right. But it wasn't, I watch a lot of silent horror movies.
Okay.
It's The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Ray got me. I still have to watch it. It's going to be my first watch. I want to see The Thing. I've never seen The Thing, but it's definitely a
damn shame. But yeah, those movies like that are, in those general, but like I said, there's a lot of movies in between, but those are the ones that I gravitate towards.
Nice answer. I just brought up. Well, maybe you want to say hi to RJ. I don't know if you want to or not.
Hi, RJ.
But he can't stop talking about this damn Puppy Bowl.
Any
thoughts on James Gunn promoting at the Puppy Bowl, not the Super Bowl? And apparently there was nothing revealed.
I think they should do both. I think
okay.
they should have done both. I think they should be promoting this anywhere they either own the platform, which is Discovery, or they can afford to be on there. You can't compare what Superman's going to have to go through to any other movie. Any comparisons to any other movie is mute. When you hear people say, well, this is what they did, you just need to put in earplugs and not listen to them. because this is a circumstance that is unlike any other. You're talking about something that has had brand damage done to it in a way that hasn't happened. You can complain about Star Wars movies and all that, but the overall brand of Star Trek or Star Wars, if you threw a movie and you not a solo, but if you put a Star Wars so and so and then that's the title, it's $1 billion right out of the gate. So
I disagree.
with Star Wars film in the modern era, Star Wars film in the modern era has not done it. I'll give you the 0 seconds you need for that one.
Well, the sequel trilogy had the benefit of the nostalgia that you're talking about that you said doesn't work a lot of times. It worked.
No. It was nostalgia. Here's the thing, though. That brand, the brand was strong enough with those guys.
Yeah.
But even without those guys, you still made if you'd have made $1 billion with The Force Awakens and everything else that kind of like tapered off, that I could understand that, but they didn't.
I hope you're right.
They swung 3 times and they went over. So regardless of what I think about those movies, math always wins. Math doesn't lose.
Yeah, but they haven't come back to the theater since. There's got to be a reason for that. It's been the big gap between. There was still damage done. I don't think it's as bad as people say. And I don't think
you're listening to the vocal minority. The reason why they haven't gone to the movies yet is because you have since the last Star Wars movie came out, you've had this thing called Disney Plus, where they can cut out the middleman of a lot of their productions. These guys are greedy. They don't like giving up that 35% to anybody else. And once the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda came out, they saw ways to make money. It was 20. So I mean, you've had big gaps in between Star Wars in general. So, and you also have to understand that as long as Disney has enough Star Wars to drive their parks and IP, movie making is not Disney's first priority anymore. They make $38 billion in their park revenue. Movies, for the most part, is to accent the other things that they have. So they could go another 10 years without another Star Wars movie. And that doesn't mean that the brand has been damaged in that way. But that brand, even if you want to say that the brand has been damaged, okay, if I make $1 billion with 3 movies, I got room to adjust. When you're James Gunn in DC, you don't have that benefit of the doubt. People can shit in their diapers about Star Trek and Star Wars, but you have the benefit of the doubt of decades upon decades of them doing it more right than anything else. You don't have that with DC. So anywhere he could have advertised is where he should have advertised. Even if this movie loses money, which I think there's a possibility that Superman could lose money based on what they need to spend to get it out there. You do what you need to do because you're not going to get another first chance. You're running out of first chances when it comes to DC and it comes to Superman. So I thought he should have been on the Puppy Bowl, the Squirrel Bowl. Doesn't matter, whatever platform that their median audience, their demographic is going to be on, then that's where they needed to be. So I hope it works out for them.
All right, Ray,
at Sci-Fi Center, do you think Nacelle Toys will bring back Power Lords?
I have no
I
idea
don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I don't want to lie.
He's a figure collector.
I'm not familiar with them, so I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Mwamba 85 DT. William, do you think Bo DeMeo and Rob Liefeld both need to move on and trying to sue Marvel Studios and Disney? That's the current topic. Rob Liefeld left because he wasn't invited to an after party.
All right. Bo DeMeo needs to just disappear.
No, after watching his YouTube video, I'm just like, damn,
Oh, really? I didn't see it.
He's on YouTube. But anyway, I don't know if y'all watched it, but I'll let William continue.
The best thing for that guy, to be honest with you, is to disappear, because here's what he's doing. And this is whether you believe his side of anything. Doesn't matter. It's not relevant. What is relevant is if you paint yourself in a way that other people who may want to work with you are like, okay, this is a headache. I mean, I wish you well, guy, but you're surrounded by so much stuff that even if I believe in you and believe with your plight, do I want that associated with the product that I might have you work on? And then that's where he's putting himself in.
I do agree with you there. Like, he's not doing the more, even if you're in the right, the more you talk about it, the less hireable you become with other big corporations.
If he's done working, then spill away.
Well, I mean, even with Zack Snyder still has a path forward, but the more you talk about what happened, even though he was done dirty, in my opinion, it's not every studio is going to hire on that. Thankfully, he's found a place at Netflix and he's back with Warner Brothers in some capacity. So I do feel that.
Can you bring that question up real quick? As far as them suing, no, they don't have any grounds, unfortunately.
You can't sue because you weren't invited to an after party. It might be lame.
Yeah.
And
Rob
I
was-
would want them to treat creators better, but they legally don't have to invite you to an after party.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld, from what I understand, he's been invited to a lot of stuff. He's been on board for a lot of different things. So I don't quite understand what he's talking about, but I'll let him lead that case. But as far as like, okay, Rob Liefeld's career has been buoyed by the fact that him and Fabian Nicieza created Deadpool, and that's whatever else he does, he can always go back to that. That's eternal credibility for them. I don't understand why he's upset, but I haven't followed that story. As far as Bowden, listen, he's involved in things that I'm not against. But if I'm selling something to this audience and this core, and it's not consistent, then I have every right. But at the same time, I think his presentation of his case just makes it, because everybody understands what these things happen in Hollywood. But when you become so overt with it, it's like the next guy's like, okay, if I hire D'Amato to do a story about write something, Raya the superhero, right? What's going to be the story? Raya the superhero or what he's involved in? And the same goes with Neil Gaiman. Right now, there are allegations that it looks bad, but even if he was exonerated, even if he was 100% innocent, it sucks that that would happen to somebody like that. But at the same time, if I'm DC, if I'm Black Label, if I'm Netflix, I'm trying to sell you a product. I can't have this. Yeah. I can't have this between you and me. So it's not fair, but it is what
business,
it is.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. Raya, if you want to.
What's the most obscure, hard to find movie William has ever screened?
Ooh, there's about 60 or 70 of those. Tetsuya the Iron Man, at the time, Tokyo Gore Police, I Saw the Devil, Eraserhead, back when nobody knew what it was. Mainstream people didn't know what it was.
I've never seen that.
Clockwork Orange. I mean, a lot of movies that people are legendary now, but at the time when we were doing them, they were abstract films that people heard about, but they didn't necessarily see.
Do you have, for your theater, do you have these archive where you can stream them again once you get them, or I don't know.
Well, usually, like I said, I got them all on digital now because Blu-ray player. I don't have a Blu-ray player anymore. I don't have any of that. I have a VHS player. It's dug somewhere, but it just the convenience of being able to stream it. And when it came to some of those obscure movies, you had to get them from the studio, and they didn't have them. They only had them on.
So digital. That's something that's improved over the years.
Yeah, the accessibility. That's why I decreased my screening operation, because the accessibility when I first started doing it just wasn't there. We had to, you weren't going to see these movies in Vegas without us showing them.
Really quick, since you mentioned lack of availability to media either on like streaming platforms or just like being able to buy it physically, are you a big stickler for like graphic fidelity, or you're just like, give me like a 240 version of a movie and I'm fine? Like, which is it for you?
I'm fine either way. A lot of that, the aesthetics of that one is going to depend on the story. If the story is strong, it tends to drive that aesthetic, and it's actually a part of it. If the story sucks and I'm looking at shit, then it's a big difference.
And Wamba 85 DT, William, did you enjoy? I think I know this because I think you interviewed, right?
I don't know yet, because that movie was very disturbing. We interviewed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a very disturbing.
I wanted to
movie.
see that. I like Peter. Peter Pan's one of my favorite fairy tales.
Yeah,
very disturbing.
Think Henry, the Diary of a Serial Killer.
But didn't you interview the director?
I interviewed the director. I interviewed Tinkerbell, and I interviewed Peter Pan. I interviewed the producer of all these movies.
Didn't that sway your reaction? I'm just kidding. I know it didn't.
Well, no,
it's
not
weird.
A bad reaction. It's not a bad reaction.
It's
just I'm still processing that movie.
Still processing.
Yeah, it's their most disturbing of the ones that they've done, and you looking with what they've done, that's saying a lot.
Shout out to Vince, because I know he helps a lot at the Sci-Fi Center. He doesn't really have a question, but he's very surprised that you're into Magic the Gathering. So I think you made his day. I think Vince, are you in the Magic the Gathering too?
When I don't have my deck somewhere around here, but no, it got to the point where I was so competitive with it that when I was at work, I was at Walmart pulling pallets, and I was thinking of combinations I could counter. I mean, all day long, so I would be ready for the.
Do you have any rare cards?
I have a mock somewhere. I have an Nvidia somewhere. I have some alpha cards tucked away somewhere.
That is.
Well, the alpha cards are the original ones, but they were different corners, and you can't use them for gameplay because the corners are different. You could identify the cards. So Yeah, I got some of those somewhere, but yeah, Magic the Gathering was an obsession, not because it sold well, because it was something I could participate in with fans. I could somebody counterspell. I had a counterspell direct damage deck is what I had. So yeah.
Were you into Dungeons and Dragons too? Some people have crossover, or just Magic the Gathering?
I was around people who were in it. I never played Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
I understood Dungeons. I just never.
Magic the Gathering is your thing. Okay.
Magic was easier. It was basic. You didn't have a dungeon master to deal with. But I've seen relationships get broke up because dungeon masters did some silly shit, and then they pissed off all their buddies. With Magic, the card does what it does. 6/6 flying trample. It does what it does. No dungeon master necessary.
What was the one comic or graphic novel that got you into comics in the first place?
The Death of Captain Marvel. I didn't buy it outright. I wouldn't buy it till years later, but The Death of Captain Marvel was the first graphic novel that I saw. And then in general, I knew comics existed basically because I knew Batman was a comic book character. So it's sporadically out there. But The Death of Captain Marvel was the one that, because it was a deep story. And like I said, I was like 9 when I read it. I think as far as that, I'd had other comics before, but it wasn't until that one that I'm like, because Jim Starlin was, was one of those guys, one of the 3 people at the time that could kill a superhero and keep him dead.
I put a question in too, so I won't forget. What would you do different if you were in charge of DC, even with James Gunn? And how do you think James Gunn's going to have success with his strategy?
I hope he does. I think there are things, if he fails, it's not going to be necessarily because of him. I think it's because there are things that are built
baggage,
poor infrastructure. You can only imagine things. It's like when you have a 747 and you're 37,000 feet in the air and you aim the nose down. Just because you switch pilots, you're still dealing with terminal velocity of a bunch of bad decision makings that you inherited. And, you have to recall the audience now because we get loud on the internet, but we're 3%. It's the other 97% who don't say anything. They don't scream anything. They just walk away. That's the worst thing you could have as a retailer. I would rather have the customer come into me and tell me what a piece of shit I was and what he would like to see than the person who you never get feedback from them because you can never, you're in a bad place.
They just quit out. Silently quit on it. Yeah.
What I would do is I would embrace. I would do what they stopped doing in '86 for the most part. I was embrace the diversity. I would be catering to if I had a great grandfather, a father, and a son walking into the store with the length of time DC has been around, I would be catering to each and every one of those. I think there's enough bandwidth in the story. I said this for years, and now people are starting to figure it out that the one universe had a time thing is the dumbest fucking thing you could ever let jump out of your mouth. And I think they've made a horrible mistake both in movies and on their paper platform. They're starting to change directions right now, and it's leading to better numbers. Absolute Batman is one of those things. So no, I would market it. I would market it to all the audiences that are out there. I would do more with Elseworlds. I hope James Gunn does more with Elseworlds, but Elseworlds will be such an established brand that it's on the level of another film company. So there's a lot of things that I would do, and stop trying to be Marvel Comics. I think the critical mistake that and I don't think that's going to be a problem with James Gunn because he understands the IP. I think the biggest problem, and I hear some of the dumb shit about, somebody can actually come to me and tell me that Batman versus Superman was a failure. That person, I wish I had a teleportation ring and I could push it and send them back to whatever math.
I know a lot of those people.
Yeah. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If I can sum it up, they have to know what success is. They can't not listen to fucking stupid fans like us about what success is. Once again, we laid down nothing before we went to the box office. $873 million. If you can call that a failure, you don't need to be near money. You just don't understand money. So they did is, and I hope they never do this again, is they had their eye on the Marvel product. And like I said, it's 2 cars going down the Autobahn and you're trying to drive your Corvette while you're looking into the other person's Dodge Charger and you crash your car while they move on.
Do you think Warner Brothers still has those unrealistic expectations?
I don't know. I hope not, because I don't know what the conversation that David Zaslav had with the stockholders when he bought James Gunn on. If he gave him a CinemaCon speech and told everybody that the box office is coming back and that we're not streaming is dead and all this stuff, and it basically lied. Then it told them that, you know what, Superman right out the door is going to be $1 billion. Right, then there's going to be a problem. If he had a honest conversation saying, hey, we might take this in the balls for a couple of years, but we're building something sustainable and special. Then if he had that conversation, which I don't know if Dazoff is capable of that, but if he had that conversation, then I think James Gunn will be fine, because I think eventually things will solidify. But we got to stop it with the dumbest things. And then we're promoting all these movies. The whole Marvel versus DC thing, just because Marvel did things one way, you had the fanboy logic. Well, this is the way they got to do it over there. You're telling me that that's the thing. When they first came in through that genre, when you came in through comic books, you understood that was bullshit. Frank Miller wrote for both companies and wrote distinguishedly different, depending on if he was writing Daredevil, he didn't necessarily write Daredevil the same way he wrote Batman. So you have two different genesis from when these companies come from, and you have to be true to that. I think that right now the best thing that they could do is that, yes, you want to listen to fans to a certain extent, but fans know what they want. They don't always know what works. So that's what the biggest thing I hope that they embrace this time around. Yes, I love the new Star Trek stuff. It's hit and miss. I thought Section 31 wasn't good. And I thought some of Discovery had a rough start, but overall it wrapped into a show I like. Strange New Worlds might end up surpassing Voyager. Is my favorite show when it's all said and done. So I love the new Trek stuff. I know there's people in my generation that don't, but you know what? If you want Trek to die, then we can just keep, running reruns of 1966 to 1968 and, and Next Generation for the next 40 years, and it will die like it almost did from 2004 to 2017.
Ray, if you want to ask them this one.
Yeah, from Samuel. Questions for William. Thoughts on WB Games and their recent troubles, and should James Gunn or DC Studios be more involved?
No. The problem with those things, and it's the same thing with Warner Brothers Animation. The return on investment isn't something that they think that has a value to them, so they don't commit to it like they do everything else. I for a while they were thinking that way about the paper industry, and it bugged the shit out of me because they weren't putting an investment in that. I think Scott Snyder has helped turn that around. But yeah, when it comes to Warner Brothers film, I don't want James Gunn involved in anything but making things for DC Studios. That's it. But they do need to be more aggressive. If you don't want to do animation and you don't think you can make money off of it, then don't commit to these projects. If you don't think you can make a return on investment on video games, then farm it out to somebody who will, and just license it out. But yeah, that's what I think. Their focus is on streaming and movies and IPs right now. They're not necessarily good at pushing them in other realms, and they need to hand that off to somebody else.
I politely disagree. I think James Gunn should be very involved. It's early in his career, he did do some gaming, and I think that would be a differential that Marvel is actually involvement there and having that synergy of cross promotion. And the video game industry continues to grow. There's a huge audience, and it can make. I think it would be an amazing.
He doesn't need to be involved in that though. He shouldn't be. He can create the pathway as far as, okay, this is what I'm doing with these characters. Here's a character I'm going to introduce. But as far as the nuts and bolts of it, no, he's a studio head. Let the gaming people do that. Let the gaming people take what he put out there and then do their business with him. I don't think he should be involved in organizing or doing anything like that. He's a studio head, and a studio head who's making multiple movies with high risk involved as far as whether this goes right or not. He can coordinate with those people, but let those people do their things and let that be its own entity. And they have two eyes and ears. They can see what he's doing. They can translate that on their own. They don't need him to do that. And I think that would be a detriment to his overall focus to have to do all that.
It'd be a lot. He's already got more than he could chew. He's already bitten off more than he could chew. But still, they need help. I think a reason why this keeps coming.
Well, they need better people running certain things. So, like I said, if you're running the video game division, you shouldn't need James Gunn.
Okay.
If you have somebody capable in any of these silos, they shouldn't need everybody else. They should report to them. They shouldn't necessarily be reliant on them.
My pal Bruce Kingdom of Nerds asks, "What's your opinion on Rob Liefeld?"
He's an all right artist. He takes risk. He's a best salesman I've seen in a long time, even back in the earlier days. He sold himself well, and he made a living out of it. couldn't keep deadlines. A lot of the comics we would be selling him didn't come in on time, but then a lot of Image guys are like that. But as far as like I've met it, he's nice guy. A lot of the stuff he's created, I'm not the biggest fan. I was never a big fan of Deadpool, even when he first came out. And
you too. Come on, you and Bruce. I can't stand all you Deadpool. At least you like Daredevil. At least you like Daredevil.
Nah, you got when he came out, he wasn't like this. He wasn't a goofy mercenary with cracking dumb jokes. He was actually pretty serious, man. The same reason I don't like Deadpool and modern stuff. I don't like breaking the fourth wall. I'm not here to I'm not in a stand-up comedian routine. I don't need you to know I'm here. So,
okay, well, I thought of an off the fly question there too. What's some are overrated comic book characters that you think? Is Deadpool? Deadpool's one of them.
Deadpool will be one of them. I don't think there's not too many out there, to be honest with you, because a lot of it's you could put Howard the Duck. If you took Howard the Duck and you put him in with his natural, you put him in with Man-Thing, you put him in with the Nexus of All Realities, you put him in there. Yeah, that sounds like a goofy character based on what you know about Howard the Duck. But if you actually read those stories when they did that, you actually have a pretty decent story. So you can take a crappy character that seems overrated. A lot of the characters that are overrated are overexposed. It's not necessarily the character itself. It's overexposure of the character. Once they see that they can make some money off it, they tend to saturate. So I don't know if there's any overrated characters per se. I think the exposure is the problem, and both movies and comic books. So you could throw any character like that. I could say Spider-Man is overrated. There's too many Peter Parker books out there. But if they were all good and they were all selling, then the market would dictate that. So.
One thing I did want to add too to the Howard the Duck conversation, for a lot of folks who are in the chat as well as other folks who may not know, William does a bunch of live streams, whether it be like a full series every night or one-off movies. And one of his most well-known watch parties was for Howard the Duck. Yeah. And since then he's just been a prolific watch partier from there. So Howard the Duck was the catalyst for his channel.
Correct that one,
but before, when you did the Howard the Duck watch party, had it been a while since you've seen it again? Or I know you saw it back
I hadn't watched it.
You're like, wow, this didn't age well, or what?
It didn't age well while I was sitting watching it. That took away my credibility to pick movies. When we went to the movies, I was out of it for a couple of years after that. So,
okay,
Larry.
Okay, I'll ask you for Max. Oh, do you know how William describes a reboot? It's one of his best quotes.
When stupid and lazy fuck, the resulting love child is reboot. Yeah, reboots are the laziest and dumbest things you can do. You basically are telling me you're out of ideas. You're out of ideas.
I mean, I wish they finished the story before they reboot. That's my main issue.
Well, then you're dead on arrival. When you do it intergenerate, it's one thing. Like people call it, well, Ben Affleck if Batman it would have been a reboot. No, the Dark Knight trilogy got all the way through. Well, Spider-Man rebooted. No, Spider-Man created a version of their character and went forward with that. Garfield Spider-Man didn't reboot,
but they fixed it with No Way Home.
They sort of did, and then you have Tobey Maguire. That's not the Garfield wasn't a reboot of Spider-Man. It was a reimagining and relaunching because Tobey's Spider-Man had 3 movies, so told his story. So my problem with reboot is it's really hurt comic books. When you do a reboot, you're basically telling somebody who invested to you up in that point that their time pretty much is worthless. And DC Warner Brothers has been criminal when it comes to that. And you can bring this all the way back to the Snyder fan, because I always say there are varying degrees of people who don't necessarily conduct themselves in the best, but the one name, you call them all these names, the one that you probably should have started out with first is customer. And when you're doing a reboot, you're basically telling the customer that's in front of you to go somewhere else. And you never do that. I don't know any retailer that's ever stayed in business that took the customer standing in front of them and told them to go anywhere else but their place. And that's what DC did with their reboot. They're basically playing a guessing game and hoping and praying that what James Gunn does takes traction, but they dismissed, regardless of what you think about the movies and all that, that customer was here. That customer was here. That wallet was here. You had that customer. Now you push that customer overboard and hoping that this next guy, will like your cologne and may just turn around and say, it sounds like shit. So you're taking a risk and you're dismissing a foundation. That's what sucks about reboots. If you have to make changes, if you have to go forward, things have to change. You take that customer with you. You don't just cast them aside. You want to take that customer you have in this new thing you're doing. You want to blend them together. But yeah, that's reboots have, usually when you're doing a reboot, there's a reason why it's happening, especially intergenerational ones. That's the ones I'm talking about, like Hellboy. That was dumb. That was a dumb idea. That's a movie that shouldn't have been made, because your intergenerational audience were the only reason you had a Hellboy audience was because of Hellboys 1 and 2. Hellboy's been around for years, and nobody was, coming in with a
relevancy went up with the movies.
Ron Perlman may be coming back, I think, or that was kind of a rumor. No, not really.
I would be championing that, but Guillermo del Toro will not compromise his vision, which should be respected. He would not change. They had a meeting with him. He would not change his budget. He's like, no, I'm going to do this or nothing.
And the movie should have been scrapped. That meeting should have been that movie for another 8 or 9 years.
And then Ron Perlman, I still would like to see it, but he's gone real political that it's hard sells to the general audiences that are going to resurface stuff with him. Okay, let me see. What's your any favorite movies from your favorite movie of last year? Favorite upcoming movie?
Dune was my favorite movie of the last year or so. Upcoming movie is going to be Fantastic Four. I mean, that's literally the only movie.
Okay, so that month, a lot of viewers like to say, what's going to win? Put a top 1, 2, 3: Superman, Fantastic Four, or Jurassic World Rebirth.
Well, Jurassic World Rebirth is going to win. Probably make more than those
really
two combined.
You think?
It's an established brand that has not.
But they have more views on the Superman trailer.
No Jurassic movie has made less than $1 billion.
How much does it cost to watch a trailer? It's free for the most part. Yeah. Now, when it comes to making that investment for the wife, the family, the mistress, and everything else to go on there, we're talking actually putting your money where your mouth is. I can watch a trailer for free. It doesn't cost me anything. So having that many views on a trailer, and then people are comparing, well, this movie did this many views, and we want to make this. Most of them are MCU movies that were part of a well-oiled machine. So you can't necessarily compare with what's doing on a trailer in 2024, where that's where we get a lot of our information. So it's not an extra effort, and there's no risk involved. I think Jurassic Park clearly wins. I think Fantastic Four does really good money, and I think Superman comes in right behind that. I think they all make good money. But a lot of it's going to depend on what the fat suits and the fat cats consider Superman money, but I think Fantastic Four is going to do just fine.
Since people are in the chat are referencing your infamous watch parties, is there like a top 3 hardest watch parties, or is there any movie you won't do? You're like, no, I'm not watching that. Because I have some friends that will. I'm not going to watch it. I have a friend yesterday that says he refuses to watch Titanic. He's never seen Titanic. I will not watch. Is there anything you refuse to watch?
There are some I can't remember off the top of my head, though. We've mentioned them because they come up in the chat.
Howard the Duck was a hard one. Was Terrifier hard? Because I know Fourth made me watch
Terrifier wasn't hard. It was just a bad movie.
Oh,
it's a bad movie. It's a bad movie, but it's not meant for me. So when I say it's bad, that's not when I went to go see Terrifier, there were plenty of people who enjoyed it, and I'm happy for them. It's just not my type of horror. I mean, I thought it was senseless, but you know what? That's just me. It wasn't made for me. So,
I'm just thinking questions off the fly. Anything that's in your like classic movies you haven't seen? Like there's some, like I have a lot of work to do on some movies back here.
Generally, I go, if it's a movie like that that's in that realm, I just go see it.
Well, being an owner where you have a theater, it's kind of hard to get stuff where you don't see, right?
Oh yeah, and then I can we have the internet age. I can watch it, internet archive. There's not too many classic movies that I've ever wanted to see that I haven't actually seen. I mean, pretty much most of them I've seen. And if there's any hesitation, I just don't go see it at all. Like I know movies that are coming out.
I heard that's pretty infamous. I don't want to watch that one either.
It's tame by today's standards.
Oh, really?
If you watch Terrifier, I mean, the Cannibal Holocaust is going to be like a romper room for you.
I would never heard of it. Okay. Do we want to start wrapping up, or what are you guys feeling? It's up to you
It's
two.
up to you.
I'm
This is your show.
Yeah, I definitely want to give you time to, you know, recalibrate and get ready for your stream, William. I've been plugging it in the chat. So folks, go support William over at the Sci-Fi Center on YouTube, and his socials are literally at the Sci-Fi Center for everything. Instagram,
amazing.
X, Facebook. Go and hit him up there. Check out his website. All his socials are there as well. X, he's getting more active on there too. He gets his spicy opinions out there. So if you want to, you know, go check him out, he's definitely entertaining to watch there as well as on his YouTube channel. So, and he has the Super Bowl watch party right after the show. So go.
Are you
tune
watching
in
the
for
whole
that.
watch part? Oh, Super
Yeah,
Bowl
I'm gonna
live.
have it up
Awesome.
on it. I'm gonna be here watching it anyway, so I'm gonna be going in and out. You know.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So
And
thank
yeah.
you. Oh,
Thank
thank you, Rhea, for putting this together. Rhea's the scheduling and she handles that part. I can't handle that, but thank you, William, for finally appearing on this
Like I
series.
said, yeah, Brad.
Thanks for making time to come to our little channel or like our
Yeah.
little show, you know, like our little nothing show.
Cool. No, thank you for having me.
I hope
Yeah.
I hope to visit you in real life one day. I want to go to the Sci-Fi Center for sure.
Yeah, bring the Dr. Doom mask if you do.
Okay. You know what? I have an extra one. I'll send it to you if you want to.
No, I'd rather you be wearing it. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of us will be piling over to William's channel for a Super Bowl stream. And yeah, thank you, Max. Thank you, William. Thank you, chat. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. All right, take care. Bye.